have to click a thing on it. We all set? Right. So the mouse will do the click thing, I'm afraid. That's as good as it's going to get.
Okay.
And I'll step out of the way.
I'll hover in this.
Okay, so now you're ready. I'll just dive back in. We're ready? Yep. All right, so welcome back, everyone. This is the public meeting for November 2018. We have 3 items on the agenda today. The first one is the team from ESPDD, Environment Planning Sustainable Development Directorate, will talk to the Town Centre Planning Refresh, which was released yesterday.
Yes, we do.
And which the GCC approached EPSDD about in late 2016. So, without further ado, Kathy.
Thank you. I'm Kathy Cusack, as Peter said, from EPSDD, Executive Director for Land Planning and Building Policy. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Stephen Giannakis, who manages our Greenfield team. Stephen's been kind enough to come along tonight. He has managed different stages of the work in Gungahlin through its process of what I understand has been almost 2 years, if not 2 years now, which I think you alluded to earlier, Peter. I've got a couple of things to present to you on. I'm taking the opportunity to be here and to talk to you about some other things we're doing as well as Gungahlin. I wanted to have the opportunity to talk to you about the review of the planning strategy, which is underway at the moment, the upcoming review of the territory plan, and then we'll I'm conscious that the planning refresh was only released yesterday, and to be meeting today is in a lot of ways maybe not ideal because you probably haven't had the opportunity to go through it in detail, but we are available to meet with you at any point and at any time that you'd like if you have more detailed comments or questions than what we have tonight. So just to kick off very quickly with the planning strategy refresh, we have a planning strategy. It was prepared for the ACT in. Am I? Sorry. All right. Right. Okay. I am usually quite mobile, but I'll stand here for today. We do have a planning strategy already. It's targeted at managing the ACT's growth across the entire territory, and it works usually in 5-year tranches. So the Act requires that the Minister consider every 5 years whether or not that existing strategy needs review. In 2017, the Minister decided that the 2012 strategy did need review, and so that's been one of the key projects we've been working on through 2018. What you can see here is just a quick comment on the structure of the existing strategy and the way that we're moving with the proposed. We're looking at the compact and efficient city, which is essentially around land take and around what it is to protect environmental values and concentrate urban development, but in a responsible and in a design excellence or quality style of manner. We have Diverse Canberra, which is about employment and opportunity. We've got a sustainable and resilient territory theme, which is around resilience, safety and security, adaptability and managing climate change through an adaptation strategy. Living infrastructure, or trees and greenery as we know it, and then we also have Accessible Canberra, which is looking at mobility, movement and government at the moment. So I think it's important that I mention we developed this refresh of the planning strategy in consultation with the review of the transport strategy. We have an emerging climate change strategy which should be on the table for discussion at some point in 2019. So the review that we're doing is integrated with a lot of strategic directions for government. Just a couple population, we're sitting at 416 people at the moment. Growth is steady and above the national average, and we expect to reach 500,000 by just 2030. Thank you. Housing. Housing households made up of 2 or fewer people. And we have a split of dwellings there that show we're still mostly living in single and on jobs. We've had considerable job growth since 2012, since the current planning strategy. 2012 to 2017, we've had 21,000 new jobs created. And the workforce, we have over 200,000 people working in the ACT, the vast majority of whom also live in the ACT. And then finally, just last comment on facts and trends. This is talking about our urban footprint, or what I referred to earlier as land take. And I think we'd have to say we are quite low in our density. We're not a very dense city. We have the second lowest density of all the Australian capital cities, but there are reasons for that. You know, we're the bush capital. We have a certain ethos and identity, and that contributes in part to why it is that we are a low-density city. But having said that too, we are also accommodating more growth within infill and medium to high-density developments within existing town and group centres and corridors. Thanks, Stephen. Just quickly, engagement. We talked with the community through the process of refreshing the planning strategy. We did a number of workshops to look at those refreshed themes that I talked about earlier around compactness, around efficiency, around sustainability, livability and access. We held planning in the pub sessions. We did one in Gungahlin and another for South down in Western. We did a number of meetings, stakeholder groups. We also took online polls. We had a speaker series. And we were also lucky that a lot of other review that I mentioned earlier was going on within government. So we were able to benefit from the submissions made to climate change and also to the housing strategy on their discussion papers. Okay, so what did we learn from the engagement? There's a couple of points here, but I think instead of going through them, I'd say to you that if there was one message we received resoundingly from everyone we spoke to, it was please protect and enhance what it is we love about Canberra. So that was a very, very strong message from industry, from community, from stakeholders across the board. We have amazing natural conditions here in the ACT, and people were very, very concerned with the idea that development may erode or compromise those conditions, the bush, the reserves, the beautiful setting that we find ourselves in. So it's put upon us then to find a strategy that it will enable growth, but will also preserve those things that Canberrans love about their city and their territory. So just to have a look about things we need to think about in terms of directions. Greenfield and infill development. We talk about greenfield when we mean brand new areas that we reach out into and we create low density housing within. Infill development, obviously development within existing areas. It's a very fine balance, and we need to be able to achieve a balance where we can protect that bushland fringe of Canberra and the bushland areas within the city, whilst also being able to enable growth, the dwelling and the job growth that we're going to need going forward for the next 5 years of this strategy. So considerations, obviously, not just about protection, but also about infrastructure capacity. How are we going to manage the growth and ensure that we've got services and utilities provided to the growth? And design quality came through in so many of our workshops, with many, many people saying to us that they didn't object to development per se, but they were very concerned that what they were seeing in Canberra was perhaps not of the best quality. And as the nation's capital, we should be achieving better quality and doing more to be sure that we exhibit design excellence in everything we do. That's all right, Stephen. It's I just want to race through this so that we can get to Gungahlin, but I think it's important framing for what it is we'll talk about tonight. We are hoping that government will consider the refresh of the planning strategy very soon. We are hopeful that it will be considered and released before the end of the year. And it's very, very important to us for a number of reasons, not the least of which is that we plan next year to go on to a major scale review of the territory plan. So I think a number of you have been in different forums over the past few months. You had the opportunity to hear our Director General discuss or introduce the topic of the territory plan review. We've had our present territory plan for a long time, and we are very interested to look at how it could be clarified, simplified, made more accessible for everyone who uses it, for developers, for community, for us as government even. So I think just to talk quickly about the territory plan review, we expect to start in 2019. We will be guided by the eventual format of the planning strategy that I've just talked us through. There is a lot of work that's been done through 2018 that will contribute to the territory plan review, the Housing Choices Project, which I think Peter mentioned in his introduction as something that you as an association have been involved in. I mean, just to contextualise the territory plan, it's based on a model that we call Development Assessment Forum. It was a national model that was seen as leading best practice at the time, but to be fair, that time was quite some time ago, and if we look at the last line on the slide, we've got 43 strategic principles, we've got 180 codes, 160 objectives, 1,400 rules, 1,200 criteria, and almost 3,000 pages. So I've been working as an urban planner for around 25 years, and it's a challenge for me to understand and use. So if I find it hard, you know, how are other people working with it or not working with it? I think it's important that we keep moving from the planning strategy and we get into what we can do to demystify urban planning through the territory plan. So now we get to Gungahlin, and my colleague Stephen, I will switch and lean on him. He may offer some points as I go through the slides very quickly. As I understand it, the work began, as Peter said, it was conceived of in late 2016. The work began in early 2017. There were three particular issues for the town centre that have prevailed throughout the refresh: building height and character, the nature and the need to upgrade public spaces, and also mobility within and external to the town centre, walking, cycling and road transport. This is just an overview of the various engagement activities, the times in which we reached out to the community and to stakeholders to have conversations about the refresh. There was a number of different structured events, there was a number of polls, there was Twitter, there was Facebook, and there was the opportunity to make submissions via email and through Your Say. Just a few quick stats on the responses we received. The gender of respondents was more in favour from the female side of our population. The vast majority of respondents were within the 20 to 39 year age bracket, and again the vast majority of respondents were in the couples with children, 48% in terms of the responses. So there were a lot of messages received in response to our outreach. There were mixed views about building heights and whether they should be increased, decreased, or stay the same. There shadowing and privacy and the way that existing developments was interfacing with proposed new developments. We did get some limited support as well for increasing building heights. There was some people who noted to us that the town centre character was changing, and that there was a greater demand for residential development within a town centre environment. We got a lot of comments on the state of public space within the Gungahlin town centre. Additional public spaces and open spaces. The community were looking for a greater program to be delivered, and a greater quality of active and passive recreation spaces and pocket parks. We got comments again around design and around the idea that public spaces had to be well designed and safe and well served with facilities such as seating, shade, recreational activities, and just general opportunities for of Gungahlin Place and the need to improve its present quality. And walking, cycling and road transport, there was a lot of concern about increasing traffic for cyclists, pedestrians and motorists, and strong support to improve centre.
In overview, and there's more information. For the eastern precinct, which is that bluish colour, and we'll come to those in a bit more detail. Movements. The red hatched circle in the blue, and apologise for the clarity of the graphic, or the potential relocation of some community facility uses closer to Flemington Road within the within Gungahlin Town Centre.
Thank you.
Yep, that's the other button. This is the Gungahlin East Precinct, which is in the legend in the top right-hand corner. The orange proposing through the refresh to change. Probably the important aspect to note is that under the current provisions under the Territory Plan, here in the dotted triangular lines, and there's certain other requirements about angles and setbacks and heights. And for the this can be somewhere between 6 and up to 12 stories, and that 12 stories is predominantly opportunities that are achieved in the middle of the others in the community is moving from a building envelope to a maximum building height. To build development or identify development adjacent to Flemington graphic. Those highest points are on either side of Flemington Road, and then development steps down to 6 stories and then 3 stories as we move to the north and to the south, predominantly to protect development on to the north of Gungahlin, but also to act as a transition. So in essence, these are the recommendations, which are graphically shown there. We've also brought a couple handouts of the document if you would like, but there's information on the EPSD's website and also your say. We'll just jump to the next one. The other change for Gungahlin East, again, just reference to the legend in the top right-hand corner, is the removal of the existing restriction relating to residential development. Back in 2011, as I understand it, through some work that the Directorate had undertaken, there was a desire to retain Gungahlin East for commercial office development. And I think from memory it was about 200,000 square metres was seen at the time to meet the long-term needs of Gungahlin. Unfortunately, as we all know, Gungahlin has struggled to attract large-scale public administration or government office buildings the announcement by Defence Housing Australia earlier this year is welcomed, and hopefully we'll be able to attract more. So what we are now proposing for commercial is a target of 100,000 square metres within the purple area of Gungahlin East. As of, I suppose, 2016, there was 13,500 square metres of commercial offices, and that was predominantly small scale, such as real estate agents and the like. We see that through just the natural growth of the town centre that there will be another, 14,500 to get up to the 35,000 of continuing small scale offices. We acknowledge and want to protect land for the future if Gungahlin is able to attract, with the benefits of light rail and further development of the centre. We want to reserve 65,000 square metres for a future office building. We've identified that site that will be reviewed in 5 years. The reason for that is to ensure that it is still current, that it is still appropriate. Who knows what will happen in 5 years with the benefit of light rail and other government investments. The other and the second dot point is that we are proposing to introduce residential uses within Gungahlin East, but whilst prohibiting developed residential uses in certain locations adjacent to Flemington Road on the ground floor, so that we can get some development in Gungahlin East in the short to medium term. And we're working with our colleagues in the Suburban Land Agency to review their planning for Gungahlin East, take on board the outcomes of the planning refresh, but also the new provisions that are being provided for in the concept draft variation that has also been attached to this document. In relation to Gungahlin Northwest, and we're conscious that this has been and was the instigator for this review, for sites that have are either undeveloped or underutilised, we are wanting to introduce new building height controls, and they vary from 7 stories on the perimeter of the precinct to 12 and then 14 stories more central. I think it's opposite the Bunnings complex to the south of Anthony Rolfe. The area of blue shown in the top is the, I think it was the air towers. What was approved. The important aspect is that our new recommendations for Northwest will not have retrospective application. The buildings that have been approved, some have been constructed, others are yet to be constructed, have all been approved, and these changes will not have retrospective application. Active travel and public space recommendations, and this is a little bit more information from that earlier slide that we were showing, really focusing on the central locations of the town centre, around the bus station and the light rail station. There's works underway. There's also proposals to extend those works to Mulungary grasslands, which is the purple area. We've also identified that there's gaps in the active travel network, and we're working with our colleagues in Transport Canberra and City Services to have those actioned as soon as possible. Community facilities. So there's a range of community facilities that are provided within the town centre, and they are schools, libraries, religious childcare, community health, and they're listed in the legend. The territory plan also provides for, and it's this legend, which is the little people, a requirement for 6 hectares of community facility land to be provided in Gungahlin East. We're not proposing to change that quantity of 6 hectares. What we're proposing is subject to a review to consider the locations of some of those spaces, because at the moment they are around the periphery, to the south of the Gully Way, to the north adjacent to Anthony Rolfe, and we think that there is a valid opportunity to review to see whether community facilities or a component of community facilities can be more centrally located on Flemington Road. That's not to say that we are looking at having a single-storey building to accommodate the community use. It would be a mixed-use type development with a community use within that building, whether it's a floor or whether it's units. It's something for detail. The whole premise is to provide mixed use, and what we're finding more across Canberra but also elsewhere, that community facility activities are becoming more focused on being co-located with other types of similar types of activities and uses, and also where they are located in close proximity to good public transport.
And one of the things that we're doing in a broader sense is going out and talking to community service providers about our direct sale policy. So this is another piece of policy work where we're going through a review of at the moment to understand what types of facilities and whereabouts we can potentially do co-located facilities, and where certain facilities need to be kept separate. So, you know, as an example, some services can be combined, thinking about health centres, childcare centres, libraries and so on. They can exist in a co-located framework. Religious facilities, it's much less likely that that piece of ongoing policy review is a big motivator for the idea that we can co-locate facilities, and in that way they're easier to access if there are numbers of facilities sharing space together.
Next one. Yep. So the next steps. So the snapshot refresh has been released together with what we call a concept Gungahlin precinct map and code. It articulates what the changes will be to the relevant provisions of the territory plan to implement the planning components of the Gungahlin planning refresh. Early next year, we will be formally starting the consultation process on the draft variation, and what we will be doing is supplementing the normal consultation with drop-in sessions and providing a for one-on-one engagement than, I suppose, the normal consultation process.
Just a couple of very quick slides on parking. We did a parking survey just recently. We did a parking survey just recently. The last survey of parking in Gungahlin had been done in 2015. So just a few summary results from what we found, and we do intend to do these surveys on a more consistent basis. We're conscious at the time that we did this survey that there was changes happening obviously when your house was in the process of implementing all-day pay parking, and there was the introduction of pay parking for stays longer than 2 hours in Gungahlin Marketplace that we needed to capture in this survey. But I think, you know, we've found that there is an increase of publicly accessible parking spaces from the last time we surveyed Gungahlin. I think we have some more detailed data on that increase, just broken down by the different types of parking space, on street, off street, paid, unpaid, you know, or private reserve, park and ride, and so on. We end up generally in a good perspective from a capacity point of view in 2018, certainly improved on where we were in 2015. And then just some notes about long stay parking peak utilisation on weekdays. that we are experiencing high demand in free all-day car parks closest to the town centre. I don't think that will come as a surprise, and that Park and Ride is at capacity. So a couple of things that we plan to do through the refresh is obviously more regular surveys so that we can understand the long and short-term parking situation as the town centre grows and develops, and also as light rail is implemented in the very near future. And I think that's all we've got for now. So thank you very much for being patient while we talked, and we're here obviously to answer any questions or take any comments that you might want to make to us. Thank you.
Okay, so we have the throwable microphone for anyone who wants to ask a question. Are there any questions? Down the usual suspects.
Thank you. Just a question with respect to the new plan and code. Noting that probably the horse has bolted on that Precinct 2B, the Western high-rise development. Most of the high-rises have been approved that are going to go up there. But they were approved notwithstanding the current code, which had restrictions anyway. Planning Authority simply approved them anyway. So is there any more teeth to the new code which will make developers adhere to things like height limits, or will they simply provide a justification in the criteria and get it approved anyway?
I think I'm going to have a stab at answering. My understanding is that a number of those high-density developments were approved under a particular provision of the territory plan, which has now lapsed, and that was how details within codes were able to be not disregarded, but I suppose
There was only one development that was approved under that loophole.
okay.
All the other developments other than Infinity simply claimed against a criteria which said we are similar to a development next door, which said, oh, there's 18, 20 stories next door, we'll improve you for 18 or 20 stories as well.
Okay.
It ignored all the housing around it. So that's where it was within the purview of the bureaucracy that approved those developments. They could have said no, it's not in the context of the surrounding houses as well, but they chose simply to go with that one criteria. So I don't know if this new code's going to have any more teeth or not.
Sorry, I'm madly trying to find the relevant. I'm madly trying to find the relevant code. The relevant component. What the new proposal is that for northwest, the maximum building heights will be as per the numbers of stories that are indicated in the snapshot, and that is a mandatory rule. So there won't be any criteria to provide for alternative solutions or arrangements.
Okay, all right. If there's no criteria,
It
Cool.
should make things more definite.
Yep. Darren?
Hi, my name's Darren. I'm concerned. I'm concerned that you've actually gone to that amount of public consultation with the people of Gungahlin, specifically in all of the feedback that you've got, and you've still decided to reduce from, 200,000 square metres to 100,000 square metres, and include residential. I honestly could walk around Gungahlin and I could ask 1,000 people, and I doubt whether even one of them would suggest to me that more residential in the Gungahlin CBD is a good idea. And the problem with the Infinity Towers initially was that it was supposed to be a commercial development, and when they turned around and said to the government, oh well, you decided to build your government department over the other side of town, so therefore you should feel bad for us, and therefore we shouldn't have to continue with what we purchased, the land, which was for commercial development in a business park. So I'm really concerned that in a democratic process where the majority of the people in Gungahlin, like if you go online and listen to them, they virulently hate the concept of any more apartment complexes going up in Gungahlin in the CBD, and they know that they haven't been listened to for the last God knows how many years, and now you're suggesting that you can't find anybody that would invest in businesses, and using exactly the same excuse that the Infinity Towers used in order to have a mixed development site. And that concerns me a lot, considering you work for the ACT taxpayers and you're coming here and saying, without any evidence to the contrary, to say that nobody would purchase that for commercial use. That concerns me.
Have the first attempt? Yeah. Thank you for the question. I suppose it's also a reflection of the ACT government. It's also a reflection of the ACT government's ability to influence Commonwealth government decisions about where Commonwealth government's offices are to be located. That area has been, I suppose, undeveloped for a while. We're talking ultimately about a medium-term strategy, but having a safeguard for if the ACT government is able to attract a large-scale commercial office, the land will be there. Whether it's 5 or 10 years. We also have to balance the need between competing priorities of residential, mixed use and offices. I think what this does is provide more certainty through providing clearer options that uses are mixed use. The snapshot also talks about introducing small-scale commercial activity as well to be able to leverage off light rail and further development.
I think that's well put. Thank you.
Prasad's got a question, but I'll ask mine. Just to be clear, the output of this refresh is not going to stand alone. It'll be input to the territory plan variation. So there's going to be no change to the territory plan or the precinct code until the whole ACT thing is done. Is that accurate?
No.
Not quite. Not quite. We do have a number of items that are moving through on their own trajectory, and we feel that we could progress them under the present territory plan before we put a hold on variations. So we'd be proposing that we would keep moving with the changes to the territory plan for Gungahlin as recommended by this refreshed document. But I think it's important to understand that the overarching territory plan will be changing, and will be changing in the next probably 2 years.
Okay. It would be good to get a summary of understanding which of the things mentioned in the refresh are actually being progressed through some other process and which are going to be provided as input to the territory plan. I mean, and obviously, based on sort of Darren's comments and others, it's, well, how do we know this is now going to happen? It's, the document's been produced and some of the recommendations, and there's some words in there like monitor and don't seem very biting. But, having seen the current planning rules not actually achieve the outcomes that we think was what was written, they were written for, how do we feel confident that better rules get written into the precinct code and then they have enforcement? And things like there's no criteria, it's only a rule, that helps. So.
It does, yeah, it does. And these are aspects, I to be fair, I spoke critically about the territory plan earlier when talking about how complex it is, but there are situations where if a matter is governed, the situation is very clear. It's when a matter is governed by criteria that there's a lot more opportunity to accept arguments around variation. I think it's a good point in terms of how we implement the refresh. I think it's something that we can definitely do. We can prepare a summary that shows those aspects of the refresh that we would propose moving forward in a territory plan variation. Those aspects of the refresh that are being pursued as public space improvements by our colleagues in Transport Canberra and City Services, and any other implementational mechanisms such as monitoring of parking, for example, which will be done separately by EPSDD, and we can give you some clarity over the regularity of those monitoring activities.
It's probably also safe, if I can add, that the provisions or the requirements or the proposals in the snapshot that relate to the territory plan are documented in the concept variation. The items that are not in the planning sphere are those public place improvements and the active travel connections. You may find that as you go through the concept variation, we've also included a number of other aspects about awnings or reinforced other planning requirements to better clarify what our intentions are, or to remove any potential misunderstandings in what the requirements relate to.
You mentioned about the community facilities marked as 6 hectares. There is a lot of requirement for community facilities with the fast growing of the Gungahlin district. With a lot of inquiries coming to our community council executive members as well. We have seen only in the Palmerston Community Centre in Palmerston for booking the celebrating festivals or function halls. We are lacking in this area, and also we are the youth centers or teenage retreats, the gathering facilities, which are available in Warden and other districts, but it's not available in Gungahlin. Is the community facilities is only just marked as 6 hectares. Is there any plan what will be built in those areas, marked areas?
I'll have to confirm that. From the plan perspective, we've only been focused about the quantity and the locations. Our colleagues in Suburban Land Agency will be looking through those a little bit further. If I can take that one on notice, because I know there have been a number of community needs assessment undertaken for the town centre over the years. Gungahlin East, which is Kenny and Throsby, as well as in North Gungahlin. But where they're all up to and whether they need to be reviewed, I'm not sure. But if there's clearly a gap that isn't being responded to, that's something for government to look at, or alternatively a parcel of land to be released for a community organisation to operate a facility.
Okay. We might only just have one or two more questions just to make sure we get through the rest of the agenda. So, this gentleman here.
Yeah. Thank you. My name is Binod. I live in Harrison and traveling this very crowded road all the time. So with the light rail, the lot of emphasis seems to be on light rail, and the whole residential development seems to be focused around increasing the passenger numbers. So if that is the purpose of building more high-rise, overcrowded residential areas, I think that may be a short-term fix. Eventually, we may not have land for office developments and commercial activities. That is another gentleman's comment was that, and I also for 5 years, 10 years, there may be down the track in 50 years time, people may be interested to set up business or government administrative offices here. So that is one. Government have any plan to bring other offices in this area to boost employment, local employment here?
I think we would have to take that on notice and get some advice and bring that back to the council. But you raise a good point on your first matter, that planning is often a very, very long-term activity, and the planning strategy I spoke about earlier has a horizon year of 2045 for that very reason, that things don't always happen. To 10 years, and what we do in the longer term, which is more like a 30 to 50 year horizon. You do make a good point, and we are trying to achieve a balance between those short and longer term requirements.
I think Henley was the last question on this topic. Unless
Thank you. A kind of similar survey in 2011, which is kind of a flop because whatever they planned didn't work. So the first question, what guarantees this going to work? And then I can see a lot of changes in terms of cutting down 200,000 meter square commercial hours to 100,000 meter square space, and then the high rises, as you mentioned saying people's actually supporting the building heights, but actually the survey results says majority of the people do not support the high rise, and then the survey results says the majority of the people only support the 5 stories. But on your presentation, you made it sound like everyone supported this and we want a big population boom in the town centre. So I have the same view. Are we doing this to support the light rail to go on a profit? Or are we gonna, are we doing in a way it's gonna help for everyone in terms of employment? So, yeah. Thank you.
As I understand it, the 2011 piece of work that was undertaken by government that introduced the notion of the 200 was a projection. It was based on a series of assumptions as well as advice that was received by the ACT. So whilst it was a plan, there was no government agency behind that knocking on the door. So I can't give you a guarantee that a Commonwealth office, large-scale Commonwealth office will move to Gungahlin. It's been one of the key issues for Gungahlin Town Centre, its ability to attract. So it is a very complex and difficult issues which to a degree are outside the immediate control of the ACT government, taking on board the question that we'll make some inquiries with others within ACT government about opportunities for other government agencies to be relocated to Gungahlin.
I mean, I'd also add, we haven't spent time on it tonight, but the engagement report for the present set of recommendations I think was released yesterday as well, and that will give more detail around that slide that I've flashed up, only very quickly in terms of the activities we undertook with the community and stakeholders and developers around the refresh. It might be that we can come back on another occasion and talk through that in more detail.
I was actually referring this survey results.
So you were referencing our survey results in 2014.
No,
and that part of the problem was, even in our survey and in the government survey, we just asked about the town centre and didn't differentiate between town centre west and town centre east, and possibly town centre somewhere else. And I think the answers would be quite markedly different if there was.
This is their survey, which I'm referring from the
Oh,
other
okay.
side. So,
Oh, my apologies. Okay. Right.
so I'm actually referring to
Yeah, but so the question was poorly framed, and so
The survey results and engagement report is out. It is very detailed. It describes what the results are, includes all the written submissions. The summary that we used is literally that. We're not using our summary as the reason for this project. We're using all the information that became available through the consultation, which we've considered, and we've had to balance the survey results against other aspects to come up with the snapshot. So it's not necessarily a straight progression from if the community have said yes to something or no to something, but that's what's reflected. We consider everything. We do further background studies to see what the implications of that will be and to support the work that was released yesterday.
I'm going to draw this to close because we have 2 other agenda items to get through the night. Thank you, Kathy, again for coming along this evening. If people do have a response, so something they want us to respond to collectively as a GCC, please let us know. I've personally not had a huge amount of time to digest all of the material that's been released yesterday, but there is a lot to digest, so have a look at it. If you want us to respond, please let us know. We'll contribute something.
That would be great.
Thank you.
And sorry, if I could just confirm, in terms of things we've taken on notice or things that we will provide more information on, Peter will come back through you.
Yep, that'd be great.
Okay, terrific.
Thank you very much.
As Stephen was about to say, we do have some copies of the snapshot if anyone would like to take a hard copy away.
Yeah. Well, someone should take them away because they've been printed now, so they could be useful. So. All right. Thank you. Yeah, I'll get that. All right. Cheers. Yeah. We're just sorting ourselves out. Thanks very much, Kathy. All right. I got a call from Lachlan a couple of weeks ago with offering to come along and give an update on all things NBN. My initial reaction was, really? I think that's actually not too bad a problem here. But then it's not for me to judge these things. In fact, I was talking to someone in the media today on the radio, and I was saying, broadband problems in Canberra. And I said, well, actually, Gungahlin, I don't think there are too many broadband problems. But I guess we'll find out now from Lachlan. So Lachlan, if you just come up. Lachlan doesn't need notes, so I suspect he's looking for lively and pointy Q&A as well.
Hello everyone, my name is Lachlan Seeney and I'm the NBN Local Manager for Southern New South Wales and ACT. That means I go out and talk to communities that are about to go either in a build process, a connect process or a disconnect process. NBN has been available in Gungahlin for quite some time and fibre to the premises, but because NBN is a wholesaler and doesn't have a shop front, it's important that we come to these forums so there's a voice in the community so concerns can be raised and questions asked as well. So I don't have a presentation and I'll be very quick, but tonight I'm going to give you a brief update of the rollout nationally, then locally, and then also talk about speed, the quality of your modem and router and things that you could be doing to improve that service, and then also give a brief overview of our medical alarm subsidy scheme that we've launched this year. And then we'll throw open to questions. So nationally, NBN is going to go to 11.5 million homes, and currently we've connected up about 7.5 million that's ready for service. Of those, there's about 4.2 million that are live connected today. About 50% of those have taken up higher speed plans, that's 50 megabits per second or 100 megabits per second, and that's really important because we know people that take up those speeds with their service. Nationally, we've also been improving our fault times, and also we've reduced the congestion on the network. It was about 5 hours a week a year ago. We're now down to half an hour a week. So that's where we are nationally. We're continuing to improve. Locally, Gungahlin is rolled out. Fibre to the premises basically everywhere. In small pockets in places like Hall, there's fibre to the node, but they're able to connect now as well. Next month, we'll be lighting up Bruce and Belconnen, and when we do that, all of North Canberra will be able to connect. In terms of speed, as I mentioned, we have a number of different speed tiers. We have 1, and if you're speed tier, 12.1 is really only for people who just want to keep a home phone. 25.5 is probably the basic. 50 is the sweet spot, and what I have at home is 100 megabits per second down because I like to stream Netflix and do lots of gaming and all sorts of stuff. With that, the quality of your router or your modem will also really impact your service. When I first connected, even though I have fibre, I used the router that came with my retailer, plugged it in, and I was only getting 40 megabits per second. Did all the troubleshooting, spoke to a million different people, and it turns out it was the router. So I went out and bought my own, and there are a number of really good ones out there, but I got a Netgear Nighthawk, plugged it in, and immediately the speed went up to 97, 98 megabits per second. This alone might not solve your problems. Even with Wi-Fi, there's 2 different frequency channels. One is a 2.4 gig, which runs kind of more long range, doesn't have as much capacity, and this is the default frequency. The other one is a 5 gigahertz. So if you're trying to stream 4K Netflix on your HD TV, you've got to switch over to that 5 gigahertz frequency, all plug in with an Ethernet cable, so it's got that physical connection. The other thing I wanted to mention was medical alarm subsidy scheme. So anyone who's on a monitored or unmonitored medical alarm, because those services go over the NBN, we're asking people to switch and get a new medical alarm. We offer a subsidy of up to 80% or $300 of that cost, because it's a forced thing. We don't want to see people who suffer from those conditions be affected or impacted at all. So that was a very quick overview, but NBN is rolled out here, so very interested in any questions you have, any concerns, yeah, please open to the floor.
Any questions? Kev?
I'm very pleased with my NBN.
Good. Can we do a case study on you?
However, there does seem to be a lot of variation in the way in which, in the amount consumed.
Sure.
And I cannot understand for the life of me why the variation is so high. And the numbers that I can get from Telstra don't tell me when I'm actually consuming stuff. Right? They give me how much I've consumed every day, if I watch it every day,
Yep.
but they don't actually give me a graph of how much I've consumed over the month. Does the NBN have that sort of stuff, and can we get that?
We do have that data, but because we are the wholesaler and we don't have that direct relationship with you, no. We give the speed data and the data consumed on our network to the retailers every week. They have that, they can see it. It's on them with that relationship, with that billing relationship with you.
Okay, so how do I go to my retailer and get them to give me that?
You ask for it.
So you want something broken down like hourly instead of...
Yeah. I would just want a graph.
If you have, and again, if you have your own router, you can break that down yourself. You'll be able to see that. Sorry, mate.
I mean, if you're not getting what you want from your current retail service provider, choose another one. Or you can buy a router that collects those statistics and reports it. I don't know.
But I mean, it's
Yep.
crazy. It's all
What's the expected battery life for the NBN?
For the battery backup for, I think it's about 2 years. I've had a few people come into the office say, oh, this thing's beeping, I need to replace it. About 2 years, give or take, depending.
They last 11 months.
Yep. Yes, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, in my experience, the batteries life is very ordinary, and if you get 2 years, that's really unusual. But yeah, I mean, the other observation is don't worry about it. If it dies, don't worry about it. But and then it beeps. Yep. Next question.
So how is that connected to multi-story buildings, apartments?
Yep. So we have fibre running to the basement of all those premises. In a lot of them, including where I am, it's fibre to every single apartment. In some of them, it'll just be fibre to the basement and then a Cat5 or Cat6 cable, copper cable, running through the rest of the building. It depends on what the developer prefers.
You know, Darren, sorry. Yep. We'll come back to you in a sec.
I wanted to say something about the batteries but the battery is really only useful if you've got a fibre phone. Is that correct?
Correct.
And
Yes.
most people don't have a fibre phone, so there's actually having a battery backup is kind of pointless anyway. Because if the power goes off, it's not going to power their modem, is it?
Battery backup. Yeah, correct.
But most people, if they have to have a fibre phone, they actually have to have a separate sort of connection put into the actual box that it terminates into, which most people don't have. So.
Yep. So we recommend people have a mobile phone in minimum, charged and everything, and then also some people that can, even a small UPS, like I'm not sure what the U is, but a power supply you get from JB or somewhere, and that can be where you can plug your modem in to keep that service going.
What about your home alarm? My home alarm goes through the NBN.
Again, a similar thing. You could get a backup power supply. You can get them from Officeworks or JB, and it'll give you a little bit of power, maybe 3 or 4 hours.
I had no problem, but the last 2 years it's gone twice.
Yep.
The question that I actually wanted, I just heard the battery backup, and I thought a lot of people actually don't understand that thing with the fibre phone. Well, one of the things I wanted to ask is about contention ratios.
Yeah, sure.
So if I'm to ring, I know you're the wholesaler and it's not really your problem, but one of the issues that I have is that when most people sign up for a 25 or 25.5 download and 5 upload, most people don't realise they don't actually get that speed, do they? They're actually sharing that bandwidth with whatever the contention ratio might be.
Correct.
But ISP provider, nobody will provide that information. Even if I ask, it doesn't matter how I ask it. And that, to me, as a consumer, I would rather a lower contention ratio, but I cannot get that information from any of the
ACCC
ISP.
publishes it on the. I know everyone doesn't really go to the ACCC's website all that often, but they do publish it there every quarter, and you can see who are the better.
Is it different depending on which region you're from?
It shouldn't be. It's mainly just which retailer.
Okay.
And there is.
Any other burning questions?
But there's some, we're getting alerts from our retailer at the moment saying NBN's doing work overnight. My neighbour had it 2 nights ago. I'm due tonight. Do you know what that's about?
What part of town?
Palmerston.
Okay. I'm not sure, but I can check for you.
All right. I thank you for that. I now know where Lachlan is. So if people have NBN queries, I can hunt him down and pass them on. Thanks very much, Lachlan.
Thank you.
Cheers, that's great. All right. So on to item 3 on the agenda. Update on Project Wing and the movement of the trial here. I think we have their CEO and cast of thousands with slides and things like that.
Great, thanks. I'm James Burgess. I'm CEO of Wing, and my colleague Alexa from working GCC.
Nice to meet you. I'm working community outreach here in Australia.
Before we jump into content, I just wanted to say thanks to Peter and the GCC for giving us this opportunity to present tonight. Wing is a company developing drone delivery technology, and we started in 2012, 6 years ago. Save that thought. We started in 2012, 6 years ago, with the idea and passion about improving transportation, and we think that by taking advantage of the air and moving packages directly from businesses to consumers, we can really improve the quality of transportation with additional benefits to society as well. Our headquarters is in California, but actually our first public trial was here in Australia in Queensland in 2014. We began doing demonstrations with CASA at that point, and we delivered some items and supplies to farmers in rural Queensland. And that was a great success. We actually got quite positive feedback, and we saw potential in the technology. And so we went back to our engineering teams and spent the next several years working on the technology, increasing testing and development. Safety is our #1 priority, and so we didn't want to expand our testing until we were sure that we were meeting the highest levels of safety. And then in 2017, we began in the greater Canberra area. I think it was June in 2017, so a little over a year ago, we began in Fernley Park and did a trial there, and then moved to Royalla and continued the trial and the expansion. And then in Beniathan is where we're operating currently, and that trial is scheduled to wrap up in a few months. And those steps and iterations we've been taking have taught us so much about how we can continue to refine the technology and improve the service that we're providing. And we're excited that the next step is bringing us to the Mitchell area. So that's an area we're looking to invest in a long-term base of operations. And we're excited to invest in Canberra and continue to refine the technology. But before we get into details looking forward, we know the technology is pretty new and unfamiliar to some. So we wanted to play a short video that just gives you a sense for what it's like, so you have some context as we continue the conversation.
So I'll just give you a bit of a narration. So basically what happens is, should you want to order something from our app, in this instance, this lady's obviously got young children and she's too busy to go out and get things, but you can just order on the app, select the item, and the item is then loaded up by one of our. So we have a range of chemist providers for over-the-counter pharmaceuticals, food providers, and other small goods from local businesses that we like to partner with. And then it gets loaded up, and literally the drone makes no contact with the ground. It lowers a hook, the package goes up, and literally a handful of minutes later, some beautiful scenery, a handful of minutes later, the drone is then, it hovers 7 meters above the ground, it lowers a package to the ground, which is released by a hook, so there's no contact between people or anything else in the drone. And then you have the item that you needed, and that's kind of a really new concept, because quite frankly, like until recently, we haven't been able to it, and we see there's a really broad applicability with this technology, and we like to think that what we're doing is just the beginning. So I'm conscious that people probably have a lot of questions with respect to the technology and the other things that we've been doing in the community for the past 18 months and what we're looking to do going forward. So I'd like to open the floor to questions if anyone has any.
Okay, question time. All right. Other people are allowed to ask questions other than the people who always ask questions.
Do you have any survey or any representative information?
Yeah, great question. In fact, I'll get to that specific one in a moment, but just to speak generally, Australia in 2014 when we came here, but also continues to delivery to people's residences. So that feedback is actually key for us because we can't continue to develop and make decisions unless we get that feedback. So in Gungahlin we received tremendous amounts actually. We have about 160 testers that use the system, actually a little bit more than we predicted. They're actually quite a fan of the service and the quick delivery system. And then we've also heard from residences that it can be a little bit obtrusive. There's some noise issues, and we're conscious that we're introducing a new technology into communities that wasn't there before. And actually, if I can go back in time a bit, when we were operating in Royala, which is a more rural area, we didn't get much feedback about noise. It wasn't much of an issue because the layout was pretty sparse. And we're conscious now that every time an aircraft flies, it's being present for many people on the ground, maybe not the consumers who are ordering the package. And it's a bit of a challenge because every time an aircraft flies, it's actually meeting the needs of somebody in the community. We have shift workers or parents with young children who might need chemist items and don't want to pack up their children into the car. And so we're providing value, but we're also present and providing a new sound and a new presence in the community that wasn't there before. So that's sort of the balance we have to work on. And I'll say further, actually, because we've gotten amount of feedback about noise and the presence of the drones in the air, we've actually chosen to redeploy some resources, and we're working on a new version of our aircraft that reduces the sound, makes it quieter, but also changes the sound. It makes it more familiar. Right now, a drone aircraft is a pretty unique sound, and we can't help but hear it. Our brains pick out unusual sounds. And so we're changing the pitch and the frequency of our aircraft to be more familiar and to blend in the background a little bit more. So that feedback, sorry?
Just
it's actually,
stick with the microphones,
oh,
please.
So do you want to? Yeah, it's actually the interesting thing about it, it's actually no louder than any of the sounds that you would hear in urban environments. It's the pitch and frequency, and that's what we're having our engineers work on. We hope to be able to show those changes in the coming weeks and months.
And because I got the microphone, I can. There is a community group in Gungahlin with a very clever acronym of Gungahlin Against Drones, or BAD, who have been very active. They publish a regular newsletter number 6 or 7 they're up to. So if you're interested in a community groups view on that, and most of the concerns are related to noise, I encourage you to do that. They've reached out to us and said, we'd like to talk to you so you know what you're getting into. And we said, terrific, let's have a chat. And we've also, the wing team came and spoke to us as well. So, there's lots of information out there, but I would encourage people to not jump to conclusions about what they think might be happening, and take the opportunity to ask questions of the team now. So,
thanks. I'm a private drone operator, so quite happy with technology. And was that a representative vehicle?
Yeah, correct.
In the video? Okay. So it's all electric?
Yep,
You're all
fully
okay.
electric powered.
Okay, that's fine. I'll throw in one plug though. So rather than Mitchell, there's opportunity to actually build your offices or factory a bit closer to the town centre and actually use some commercial space and generate jobs. So I'll just throw that out there.
Well, we're happy to
point
hear
of view, but
actually, if I can expand on that.
Yeah.
We've picked Mitchell partly because it meets our business needs, and also because of feedback we received that our base of operations is most suited for an industrial area, and we're fine with that. We think that's appropriate. I don't know if it was quite apparent in the video, but as Alexa mentioned, you saw the aircraft picks up the package.
Yep.
And what's so exciting for us is our technology means the aircraft can take off from Mitchell, fly somewhere to a local or a small business, maybe in Gungahlin or one of the suburbs, and pick up packages from local businesses and then fly on to deliver them. And so by basing our operation in Mitchell, we're actually more proximate to more local businesses, and we're really excited to work with those partners to distribute their items and allow them to compete and offer a better service to customers.
Okay.
And I was going to say something. I just wanted to point out, like, I think you made a really good point about jobs, because something that we are really passionate about is, making sure that we're helping to expand the businesses of local businesses, because we help expand the reach by enabling them to have a new and quick way to reach their customers. And we're really excited to announce that within a couple of months of operating our facility in Mitchell, we hope to have over sort of 24 businesses, the majority of whom will be local businesses from the Gungahlin district, working with us. So that's something that we really care about.
I just had a key question, sorry. I'm conscious of the legislation and some of the restrictions around drone operations, especially around residential and populated areas. So were you able to get waivers through CASA, or do you operate under a waiver system? Or because I'd imagine it's pretty difficult to operate under current restrictions.
Yeah, so as you're aware, it sounds like aviation is a very highly regulated space, and the safety standards as well as other constraints around the operation are pretty severe, and we think that's appropriate, actually. We don't want to do things unnecessarily or without the right justification. And so it's from our long history of working with CASA since 2014 that we've been able to show them our test data and our safety case and then earn approvals to operate. And so the space today, regulations allow for what we do, but because drones are so new, oftentimes there isn't yet an applicant that can provide that safety justification or the test data that we've been able to provide. So what we're doing here in Canberra is actually first in the world. It's the most advanced drone delivery trial, which we're excited about, and we think Australia continues to be a leader in that space. We know going forward, we're not even ready to talk about expansion beyond Mitchell at this point. We still want to take it slow and learn bit by bit, but we think that there's a lot of development that will happen in the aviation space, improving regulations to be more suited for unmanned small drones versus manned aviation. And that's one area that CASA leads with respect to most other countries. Even in the US, the FAA is more suited to manned aviation only, and they have real trouble understanding unmanned systems, especially small ones, and CASA's regulations are much more appropriate.
Okay, good note. Darren and then Andrew.
So this is a bit of a left field question, but
Great.
I used to work in IT in education, and one of the things that we were trying to concentrate on is trying to train kids for jobs of the 21st century. And well, at a school I worked at, we had drones, and one of the things that we were trying to engage the students in is that a lot of these jobs of the 21st century, although they might be, these types of devices might be odd for a lot of people, that in some ways they signify the types of things that STEM education is trying to train kids in order to get jobs in the future, so that they can participate in the economies of the 21st century. So essentially, I guess my question is that how will the Wings project I think will be well positioned in order to be able to finally show a case example to students as to how they can develop the skills that they're using in their STEM projects in order to make this a commercial viable job for them in the future, not just with supplying products for the drones to be delivered, but actually participate in the programming of the drones and the software development that's in the background of that. So.
Yeah, and that's a great thing that you mentioned, and in fact, just some context, almost half of our team has come from the RC hobby space, flying remote control airplanes and building models. And for a lot of us, myself included, that's how we got into science and technology, is putting pieces together and seeing things fly, and the magic of sort of that freedom and that access. And so we think that there's a huge budding industry here, and we're excited to see where it goes as well, creating jobs and also just new ways to apply that technology education to these technologies of the future.
I mean, the other thing is we've done quite a bit of work with the school in the community we were testing in Bonython, and that's something we think is really important, is like working with students to get them really excited about STEM. And we know it's one of the ACT government's priorities to ensure that like industry and STEM in the academic sense anyway are well partnered, and that's something we really care about, and we'd be looking to continue doing as we move into this area as well.
You mentioned how airspace is very well regulated in terms of from a safety perspective. The local government hasn't caught up in terms of noise concerns from residents and the privacy concerns from these drones as well. How would you respond in terms of the Legislative Assembly has set up an inquiry to look into this? They're going to take, let's say, at least a year to go through their process, and yet you're charging ahead with your trials. What happens with that when the regulators finally do catch up?
Well, I think, first of all, we welcome that inquiry, and we think because this technology is so new, it warrants a conversation between communities and society and governments and technology providers like ourselves. One thing that's a benefit from these trials we're doing is it gives us actual experience and data, as some of the questions have pointed out. What types of feedback are people giving us, and what types of concerns do they have? And we think it's actually beneficial to processes like this inquiry, but also even future regulation development, that we have knowledge and firsthand experience of this is what the benefits are to communities, this is what some of the drawbacks could be, how could we improve those. So we're excited for that opportunity to have that conversation and tell the story and some of the benefits we see. But also, even if the inquiry wasn't present, that's still part of our motivation, is to continue these trials in a very iterative process, taking in that feedback and having these conversations so we know how this should be developed for the future. And I don't want to speak too grand here because we're really focused on the Mitchell area and the Gungahlin area, but as this is a sort of world's first technology application, we think that Canberra has an opportunity to help shape it for how it looks for the rest of the world. And there's a lot of other countries looking at what's happening here because they're also concerned with developing this sensitively and appropriately for communities. So I think there's still a lot to learn. We don't suppose that we have all the right answers yet, but we want to keep that dialogue going and make sure that we're listening to feedback and always improving.
Thank you. Next one.
Yeah, with your skyhook, how do you deliver to high rises? And also, if I order a crust pizza from down below, where do they take it to get it picked up? And the other key question is, what about the wind?
What about, sorry?
The wind.
Okay.
Winds.
Let me start with the first one, high rises. So we don't yet deliver to high rises. We're still thinking about how that would work, if it be rooftop access or some other types of mailboxes on people's balconies. But thinking about high rises and thinking about how urbanization develops and how people are congregating in denser and denser areas, we actually think this delivery technology has the capability to improve life in suburban areas by increasing access to different items, things you may need in an emergency, for example, and maybe even try to spread some of that density and development. But I'm sure people in high rises will be wanting drone delivery in the future, so we'll have to keep working on that.
And the other point is actually, as you know, it was really interesting hearing the previous presentation about the planning in the area. I mean, one of the things that happens when you get high-rise is that you get congestion and traffic congestion and things like that. And that's why we think this technology has a promise for a lot of different urban areas, because you know we're helping to take some of that road congestion off the road as people's lives get busier, or as they choose to seek more convenient options. By actually freeing up some of the roads, we helpfully hope some of this high-rise area to kind of not be as congested through the use of the skies.
Well, if they can't get the delivery, then they're still going to have to get out in the car at the moment. But
well, I mean, yeah.
So there were three questions. Wind was the wind, and how do I get my crust pizza?
Yeah.
So how do I get my crust pizza, and what about the wind?
Well, we don't currently deliver pizza, but if there's any local pizza restaurants in the Gungahlin area, we'd be.
But it's any product. I mean, the retailer has to put it out somewhere. So
yeah.
The retailer has to put the product out somewhere where you can use your skyhook to pick it
So
up.
as you saw in the video, we have a special package. Our box is engineered to be suitable for our aircraft. And so merchants have a stack of those, and as customer orders come in, they fill that box and then load it onto the drone. So
But
pizza
the loading onto the drone, where does that happen?
That happens currently, since our trial is so geographically limited, it happens right in our operating area. But one of the things we'll be looking to test in the future in the Mitchell area is actually being able to pick up packages from local businesses. And that's something that we haven't done yet before. And so we'll be working with local businesses to see what's suitable. I think it depends on having clear access to the sky and other areas that are suitably safe.
And how low does the drone come down to do that?
Sorry, I was just going to add one more thing to that point. Just for hoping to develop our first ongoing operations, we'll have a lot of the businesses co-located, so they will be within our site, and that will enable us to help these businesses expand, and we'll be able to deliver as quickly as possible because they're located in the same premises as us, and therefore minimise flight time. Sorry, I interrupted you.
That's all right. So how low does the drone have to be to collect these things?
So as you saw in the video, the aircraft hovers about 7 meters above the ground and then lowers down that hook. And that was a design decision we made early on. We love airplanes because we work on them every day, but most people either are indifferent or maybe don't like airplanes as much. And so we chose to keep the aircraft up high where there's no safety hazard or other sort of proximate fear of being close to it. So the merchant only has to care about loading their box onto the hook that retracts it up, and the consumer only has to worry about receiving the package they need, and they don't have to participate or interact with the aircraft.
And a couple of questions.
Oh, sorry.
The wind. What about the wind? Surely that's going to affect your operations. And also, is there a curfew?
There is, and we stop our operations by a certain hour to adhere to that. The wind question, we do have a wind limit. We don't fly in extremely gusty winds. It's about 20 to 25 knots or so. And so when we exceed those limits, we just ground the fleet and the aircraft stay on the ground.
Okay, and while I've got this thing, is there someone guiding it, or is it done by GPS technology?
A little bit of both. So the aircraft are fully automated. They're able to perform their mission by themselves without a human pilot, for example. But we do have a pilot who is licensed and in command of the system. So if there was any off-nominal situation or some need, the pilot is able to take over and command the aircraft to land.
So there is a camera on board?
There is a camera, although it's not used like a typical drone camera that most of us would be familiar with. So typical drones, hobby drones, actually the point of them usually is to collect imagery, film skateboard tricks, whatever it happens to be. Our aircraft has a camera as a backup to the navigation system, the GPS system, and you can think of it like an optical mouse. It's looking for pixels and colors and features to track how fast it's moving or which direction it's moving. But all of that processing is done on board. We don't send the images back to the pilot. So the pilot and our operators don't see the navigation data from that camera. It's used just for augmenting the GPS. Yeah, great question.
Well, yeah, a couple more.
Good throw.
In light of involving the community, have you considered people being able to actually, in local community, actually being able to invest in Wing? In other words, the businesses that are going to use it also become part of the thing. I mean, what we don't want to have, right? We don't want to have an Airbnb or an Uber over there in Silicon Valley or wherever it is, sucking off all the profits, right? We want some of those profits to be coming back to our own country.
That's a great suggestion.
Yeah, so we're already talking to Mitchell Traders Association and other local businesses here to work out who would like to be part of it, and I strongly encourage you. We'll be around after. We're also going to be in the Gungahlin marketplace tomorrow and then over the next few days. If you're interested, you know anyone else who's interested, we really want to help grow local businesses, because that's definitely a really core part of our technology, which is improving the ability of local businesses to reach new customers in a new and much quicker way, and in a way that's also better for the environment.
If we've got a stake in it, we're more likely to accept it.
Right.
We'll
great
take
suggestion.
that feedback on board.
Aye. So with the data, is it stored in Australia, or you sending all the data, those pixel details that the navigation things, they're all going back to US?
Go ahead, sorry if I interrupted.
Yeah, no, you can answer that, and I've got other questions as well.
A few different answers to that question. So first of all, if we didn't mention it, Wing is an Alphabet company. We're part of the group of companies that Google is facilitated with. And so we use sort of the web and cloud infrastructure of Google for storing the data. And there's some tricky nuances about where those data centers are, although there are some in Australia as well. We use that for our general team's data and operations, in particular for the camera data, the navigation data. We know privacy is a really sensitive issue. It's something we take very seriously. And so that particular data is actually auto-deleted after a certain number of days. And so we don't keep that. We don't want to hold on to it. It's not our purpose. We use it for technical debugging purposes if needed for a small part of our team, but otherwise it's wiped away and we don't record that.
Is it ever stored out of the country?
I'm not an expert on the way our cloud data centers work.
We can take that on notice.
Okay, cool. And the second question is things happen these days. So if someone hijacked the drone and then tried to take the control and go on do some crazy stuff, do you have a self-destruction kind of thing?
We don't have a self-destruct system.
Yeah.
Although it's maybe sounds like a funny question, but many command systems, many drones do actually, especially the larger, heavier ones. And so I think it's a fair question. A few thoughts. Security is paramount. We want to make sure that any security issues wouldn't compromise safety. And so back to the question from the gentleman over here, because the system is highly automated, we don't have a way for a pilot to command it like controls of an airplane. So one, we're protected from security issues based on industry standards and things, again, developed at Google and Alphabet, who are leaders in that space. but there's no way to command it or fly it manually. And the aircraft has a lot of safety features where it's constantly monitoring where it is and what mission it's being asked to do. And if anything seems amiss, it actually triggers a contingency action that says, I'm going to go land safely. For example, if the wind picks up too high, or if there's a low battery or any other issue, or some lost communications or some interfered with communications, it says, I'm not going to do anything more, I'm just going to go land safely so I don't cause a problem. And so that conservative approach of making sure the aircraft is always able to perform an action that is safe and not intrusive to the community is sort of how we base our certification on that.
Okay, the last question. Are you 100% Australian based, or the profit goes to US?
Well, we're going to be in Australia and investing in the Canberra area, and so we're going to be, with our headquarters still in California, but we're going to be growing our Australian presence, starting with Mitchell and hiring up a team here as well.
We have, at the moment, we have a number of Australian pilots who are monitoring and overseeing our operations. I'm obviously Australian, but no, we are looking to build out a team here locally as well.
Okay, excellent. Thanks.
Good questions.
Birds. How do you not crash into birds?
Good question. There's actually a lot of users of the airspace, and you typically think of the manned aircraft or the other airplanes up there, but also birds are a user of the airspace. And so in all of our testing over the past several years, we've paid a careful eye to what could those natural events look like.
Mm-hmm.
Birds, it turns out, are very good at seeing and detecting things and getting out of the way. And we haven't really observed any possible conflicts in the air as we fly. Another reality is we fly pretty high and quite fast, faster than most typical drones fly. So we're flying at about 120, 125 kilometers per hour. And so we're able to sort of be past a region very quickly. So we're still sensitive to those issues, and we want to keep paying attention. That's part of these trials, is to learn and see that experience. We're also working with some environmental and ecological consultant companies to help us study that issue. It's not something we're firsthand experienced with, so we want to talk to experts and make sure we're being aware of those issues.
I mean, the other thing is, which, you know, we are like very passionate about, obviously animals, like everyone in the room, hopefully. And one of the big promises of drone delivery technology generally is the fact that one of the largest killers of Australian animals is actually like their roadkill, so cars and trucks. And so the hope is, you know, by again trying to get this technology off the roads, we're probably, you know, doing good things for the animals, but also the humans who unfortunately accidentally hit them.
I can just see stamped on one of your delivery boxes, no wombats were harmed.
No
in the
wombats were
delivery
harmed in the delivery of this.
Okay, all right, sorry, yes.
I sort of hate to burst everybody's bubble, but I am a resident of Gungahlin, and I have actually seen a drone being attacked by a bird on 3 occasions. Yeah, so birds do attack the drones.
I'm curious, when the drone was hovering or when it was whizzing along?
When it was flying towards a spot and then flying and then going towards a spot and then hovering, and the bird was attacking it.
Well, thanks for that feedback. I think we're aware of one of those issues we heard some feedback on. Birds attacking the drone is something that we're concerned about both directions, the aircraft hitting birds as well as birds attacking the drone. We're not aware of any instance where we actually made contact with a bird, and I think I'm not as familiar with Australia wildlife, but I understand the magpies are pretty aggressive sometimes of the year. And so the aircraft is designed with a lot of safety features, and it's even made out of styrofoam in most parts. And so it's very lightweight and frangible. It's able to be easily dented. It's not rigid, for example. And so we're not aware of a case where we've actually harmed any wildlife or a bird.
No, but it was just swooping in, like a bird would.
Right.
Yeah, magpie when it's mating season. Yeah, they're pretty aggressive.
So I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, well, hang on.
I'm aware that you're doing, as part of being able to be up in Gungahlin for the drone trial, Parks and Conservation said that they needed you to do an avian study. I'm just wondering how that's progressing and when the results of that will be released.
Sure. As mentioned, we're working with these consultancies who are experts in that field to do those studies. I'm aware of some of the preliminary results that have come back where there hasn't been material concern about that. But we want to continue engaging with those firms and keep studying this as we go. I don't know if you have more info.
Yeah, no, we'll take that on notice. I'm not sure of the exact, we'll definitely be talking at a high level about some of those findings, but I'll take it on notice as to the date of that completion.
It's just that what I've noticed as a resident moving back here onto Pine Island Reserve is that families of magpies have disappeared, and there's a lot of birds on Strangers Pond that aren't there anymore that are normally there. I've been living there for 9 years. So we've really noticed, as residents that walk through the bush there all the time, that a lot of birds seem to have disappeared. So I'm really eager to see if there's some sort of statistical data that supports that.
Absolutely. We'll take that on notice.
So those locations are near the drone base.
The drone base flies over that part of Pine Island to get to the residential area.
Right. Okay. Understood. Yep. So, there's still a question there?
Is your presence in Mitchell is permanent, means like there will be no review and nothing anyone can do, or is this conditional?
No, I mean, just like any other business would, we have to go through the same processes, and so we're submitting a development application for the site that we plan to operate from. And even if everything goes as planned and we start operations, they wouldn't be until early or mid 2019. And so the next several months for us are all about community engagement and consultation and getting feedback and making sure that what we will offer is going to be acceptable to the community.
Yeah, we want to hear from you all about how best for us to implement this service and work out how the service can be of most value, and that's something I've got some leave behinds here which I'd love to give you, which is as I said, like for the coming weeks and months we're going to be at Gungahlin Marketplace and maybe some other locations to be determined, but we'd love for you to come and have a chat to us, and so we can find out more and really make sure that we're going to implement something that is in line with what people are hoping to get out of the service.
And I think, and I'm not sure if we mentioned it earlier, I don't believe we did, but because we're really trying to take this a step at a time and incorporate the feedback we're getting, even though drone delivery has the potential to offer amazing service at great distances across Canberra, but even into rural areas, we're still going to constrain our operations pretty tightly when we begin at Mitchell. So not until, as mentioned earlier, mid next year, but just beginning with the surrounding suburbs, Grace, Palmerston, Harrison, and Franklin. And Gungahlin in the middle there. So we'll be doing it very incrementally and working with those nearby communities to ensure that this is a valuable service before we expand.
So just one more question on safety is like, has there been any incident of like the failing and falling the drone?
Yeah, great question. As mentioned, safety is our #1 priority on this project, and so we didn't begin these trials until we were sure that we were meeting the highest safety standards. So fortunately we can report that no, there hasn't been. Given the design of the aircraft, the testing, and even just the multiple layers of redundancy, I don't want to get into too many technical details unless you all want to, but we have multiple propellers and motors, so if some fail we can still fly. We have redundant battery packs, so if one fails we can still fly. And because of that emphasis on safety and reliability, we actually haven't had any unintended flight accidents like that.
The other thing to note, this is a really exciting concept, but we have done a lot of testing and our data shows that drone delivery is far safer than you hopping in your car to go and drive and get something from the shops and come back again. So that's exciting. And the other really exciting benefit of this technology is the environmental benefits. So we're aware that Canberra wants to be carbon neutral basically by 2045. Our drones are 22 times more carbon efficient than you hopping in your car, driving to get a good and come back. So the promise of the technology is huge, both on a safety front and also from an environmental perspective.
Yeah. Solar front, is it?
No, our drone is it's an all electric design.
So you still need the electricity.
But it's even taking
electricity needs to come from.
No, absolutely.
Cold, so.
Yep, absolutely. So even taking that into account, we're still 22 times more efficient. So we had the University of Washington come do a study for us here in Canberra. So the study is specific to the road density and also the road map of Canberra.
You would be very disappointed if the drone wasn't more efficient for delivering a 1 kilo package. I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, the car can. Getting up close to our time. Sorry, did you want to comment on that?
I was just going to say, we actually see increasing adoption of on-ground, on-demand delivery through courier services. And in that case, actually, it's pretty unfortunate because we see automobiles transporting just single-item orders through some of the services you may be familiar with. And we think the potential for drones to do that and remove that burden from the ground is actually quite high.
So on that, how much does this add to the cost of the product you buy?
Really good question.
Yeah, great question. As Alexa mentioned, we're excited about some of the benefits, the environmental improvement and the traffic congestion and safety, but actually drone delivery has the potential to be much less expensive than automotive delivery. And so we hope that we can connect businesses to users not only at greater distances and at faster service
exciting. I get really excited about lots of things. Sorry, I'm a very excitable person. We had some really exciting independent research that we did that we got commissioned on the economic benefits of drone delivery, and that study came back and is going to be, we haven't really announced it yet, but hot off the press. The cost of drone delivery based on this institute study is 90% cheaper than traditional delivery methods. And so for a restaurant, for example, about 30% of the total value of their item tends to be the delivery cost. So it's quite prohibitive for small business. And so the fact that this technology is so much cheaper will enable all businesses, not just the big chains, local businesses, to really be able to deliver their goods to their customers and increase their reach within the community.
Let's cut to the chase. I want to buy a piccolo latte. I normally spend $3.50 on it. If I get it via drone, it will cost me...
Well, we're still working on some of the business models, so we don't have an exact number. How much would you be willing to pay?
Let us know.
That would be a variable dependent on the time of day.
Just to give a sense, it's in the very low singles of dollars, and we're looking to make that even less expensive over time.
So, yeah. All right. Darren, we're getting down to the last one or two questions, given it's late.
So, although the trial on the other side of Canberra had some negatives about it, I kind of can't help but think that I know that Gungahlin and the Community Council was talking initially when the end first came out to Gungahlin, and one of the things that the Community Council was talking to the government about was about Gungahlin being a digital hub, somewhere in Canberra where we can diversify our economy away from having to, as we heard before, rely on the public service, either a government agency coming to Gungahlin is really the only way of expansion that we can see of Gungahlin in the future. And I would hope that something like this project might be the first of many for the Gungahlin region, so that we can diversify some of our economy and probably stop some of our people having to travel, from here into the centre of Gungahlin. So I think this is probably one of the first projects I've seen come along, which is great, because you didn't have to pick Canberra or Gungahlin, did you? Is there a particular reason why you chose Canberra?
We did a survey of a lot of Australia's cities, and Canberra is actually known to be supportive of new innovation and new technologies. It's also where CASA is located, and they're a leader in this drone space, and so working closely with them, ensuring has the potential to really set the standard, showcase how new innovation and new technology can be applied.
So some other companies might be looking at how we react to Google and the innovation we're sort of doing here as to whether or not they invest in this region in the future.
Yeah, fair comment.
All right. So
I was just going to say, if you have further questions, we'll be here afterwards. And the other thing is, I've got some. Please come and find me. I'm in a red shirt. You can't miss me. I've got some brochures that basically say where we'll be tomorrow and the time. So please come and have a chat. I'll definitely be there. Maybe,
that's great.
Not.
If you do have events on around Gungahlin, can you let us know so we can use our channels to
and all the
put
questions
it out?
that we took on notice, we will let you know, and then you can distribute that. Thank you very
That's
much
great.
for
Thank you for coming along. All right, thank you all. All right. We usually have an opportunity for our items of any other business at the end of the meeting, but it's very late, so it better be really good other business if you want to raise something. No. All right. Thank you to all of my colleagues who've renominated on the executive to do it again for one more year, and for those who put up their hand to join the Merry Band. It's much appreciated, and we look forward to making some changes in Gungahlin the next year. Thanks very much. Good night.